Yes, this is resolved. I hope you can see me now. All right, perfect. So first of all, sorry for the delay and extremely sorry for this because I had to rush somewhere in the morning. Uh, Now let's get started. Okay. So today we are going to talk about one very important component of consulting interview process. But let me see if I can share across the article on how to change your name. Okay. You need to go to your settings and change your name when joining a meeting. You want to your name. All right. I think from our side, the settings has enabled you to change your name. Okay. So try that. Okay. If you face any issues, it would be very hard for me. Uh, I'm not sure, like if my voice is muffling because I wasn't speaking anything clearly before, but I hope you can hear me now, and my voice is not muffling. Uh, so AD_6, your name is already changed. All right. Okay, let me check. Like I can rename people, but let me see if I can rename myself. If you can click yourself, like if you can go to your name and you can click on more, you'll find the option to rename. Karthik, your name is not renamed. The instruction is please update your name. I'll just give 1 minute for people who are struggling to update your name. So if you are facing any issues, I'll just give 2 more minutes. Otherwise, I'll get started. Yeah, go over then. So you need to update your name to your initials underscore your work experience. So if your name is Karthik Bajaj, your names would become your KB underscore your work experience. All right. Perfect. Okay. For people, no, Sandeep, your is not changed. Can you give me your? I'll start with updating for Karthik. Just give me your names which you want to update. I'll update it. I'll just give this 2 minute. KB underscore 0.9. VK40. This is just last 1 more minute. I'm just ending this. For the next time, I will ask someone from the team to share the document on how to update your name so that we don't spend time here making the change. All right. Okay. Let me see. All right. So we have the underscore 05. Yes, SK_4, your name is right. I think I've updated to almost all the people. Just one more last one, which I'm doing right now. Yes, yours is updated. Let's see. Yes, so All right, so now let me get started again, like because we have a lot to cover. I'll try to cold call other people as well, but the priority would be for the people who have already changed their names and initials. All right. It doesn't impact anything. It just makes me relatively easy for me to cold call people. All right. Now, yes, you need to change it in the settings and it will be SK underscore 2.5 unless you change it again. So yes, you have to go and you have to, yes, you have to go to your settings and you have to update your names. But I think it's time to get started and talk about what we are going to discuss today. All right. I hope you can see the screen. My screen should be wide and visible. Let me arrange you all here on the screens. And as always, we'll be doing this session on Menti. So requesting everyone to join the Menti session. And just to tell you, this is how it's going to work. Let me see the links as well. So this is the link for the people who are facing any challenge or any issues. All right. So this is the link for everyone's reference to join Menti. You can either use the QR code or anything. Meanwhile, people are joining in. Let me quickly say what we are going to do today. So we are going to cover one of the very important components of the interview process for consulting, that is guesstimates. Guesstimates earlier used to form a very standard theme for many companies, right? They used to hire people just based on guesstimates. But when you approach to a more senior role or when you approach a bigger company, guesstimates become a subset of a bigger question. That is why whenever you see myself, I talk about cases first. I don't talk about these guesstimates more often. But there are still boutique companies, there are still firms which uses guesstimate as the core method of recruitment, as the core method of judging your analytical and business capabilities. At the very same time, even when you think about cases, cases have evolved in a way that a part of a case might include a market sizing kind of a question, which again becomes a guesstimate type of questions. That is what we are going to do about 2 to 3 questions today together as a team. I'm going to cold call multiple people to judge, to help each other, to collaborate, to give some different inputs. At the end of the day, at the end of this particular session, the idea should be that you understand everything which you need to know about guesstimates. Everything which you need to know about how to define parameters, how to prioritize these parameters, how to think about the numbers, what all numbers you need to know even before you get into guesstimates. These would be the key themes which we are going to discover and uncover today. For people who are still not on Menti, please do join. There might be few questions where you might need your input on. This is the link again for the people who have joined in late. But let me get started with the very first set of question. The question is, why guesstimates? Okay, I'll give you all solid 2 minutes to think about this guesstimate. Jignesh, that is what the idea is. First, let's try to understand what is guesstimate, right? Exactly. That is what we are going to do. FYI, I'm going to look into the screen for questions intermediately because there are a lot of things we want to cover. So I'll be looking into chat intermediately today, not on a continuous manner. So just wanted to give you an quick update. All right. Okay. So let's hide the responses for now and see. All right. To know the approach, to understand your problem solving skills, faster calculations, to find out your approach of logic. Yes, this is one of it. To check how vast the mind works, could be to understand the logical thinking. Yes, this is where I'm most aligned on. Um, you don't know. Good to know that you don't know logical thinking and problem solving. Yes, this is where I'm more aligned. Estimate situations based on facts and assess the situation. Okay, that could be one of the output of guesstimates. To know the thinking and analytical capabilities of a candidate, yes, but more probably a problem solving thinking, right? Or a logical thinking in this case, to capture an overall idea of number involved in the business problem, to draft a plan, to gauge quickly, mental calculation, prediction, approach calculation, to understand the problem, thinking critically, predict, decision making, critical thinking. I I believe you all are thinking on the right way. You are all are thinking on the right path. My only comment is yes, you are right, but this is broader than that. The idea of guesstimates is way broader in consulting context. Okay. Now, first of all, let me do this thing. Let me bring this blank screen and talk about 2 to 3 key themes which drives guesstimates and why guesstimates are important. Okay. So the very first thing which makes up, uh, just give me a second. Okay, I hope this works. Yes. So when we talk about guesstimates, right, it looks like that you are guessing some estimates of numbers, but ideally the truth is very beyond this thing, right? When you think about any consulting firm, the biggest value add which we do in strategy is give them some guidance based on some numbers, some benchmark which we have seen in the past, right? For example, when you want a car company to decide whether to enter US or not, the very first thing you would do is check the market size of US for these particular type of cars, right? And to do the market size, there is no way in this world that you can go and do an exact market sizing, right? You cannot go and actually survey every single people and get these things. So ideally what happens in reality is that you'll sample some subset of this and extrapolate the outcomes to create this market size in your report, right? Or what you will do is you will make some assumptions on these numbers, right? These assumptions ideally are logical, okay? Logical, driven by benchmarks. I'll talk about what are benchmarks. And that is what will help to get this number which is necessary to derive this first set of decision, okay? Now, when you talk about these things, when you talk about the idea of assumptions, these logics, these benchmarks, the broad theme is that benchmarks is nothing but something which you have seen in the past, the trends. Okay, I'm going to tie together everything which I'm saying. If you are able to understand 5 or 10% of what I said right now, this is good enough starting point. Okay, because the time thread of this is, let's think about what do you need to do a market size. To do a market size, you need to understand what's the demand. Okay, what's the life cycle of a product, and using these 2 components, you'll be able to get the yearly market size. Okay. Now, what drives the demand is your population, your age of population, your income, okay, because we are talking about cars, your public transports, right? If it is a high public transport, your cars will reduce. Then your urban versus rural. What I'm trying to say is I'm going to write different metrics which drive different things, right? Life cycle of a product, again, this is something which is driven by, first of all, the kind of product, right? If you are talking about a light bulb versus a car, they both will have a very different life cycle, right? Now, when you think about all these things, and when you think about the idea of combining demand and this product, this life cycle, thinking about all these parameters, this is what you'll do in a real consulting project, okay? This entire life cycle, which I just said, is your real consulting project, part of a real consulting project. As you can see, the exercise is extensive. If you start doing surveys, if you start using benchmarks, that is, go and check past projects, talk to different stakeholders, talk to different industry leaders. And it is one of the biggest theme to understand that what makes or break this entire calculation for your clients is how you define these drivers. Okay. You cannot include all the drivers. You need to include some which are more important versus others. And that is the entire theme of having guesstimates in your interviews. Okay. As I've said, in consulting, I've always been saying this. Consulting is the only place where your interview process is going to tie very closely to what you're going to do in your job. That is why you have guesstimates in your interview process. Now, we started thinking about all these things by just trying to answer one specific question. Why guesstimates? I hope it has given you some clarity of thoughts on why consulting firms ask guesstimates. Okay. Why they continue to ask guesstimates. Now, few of the guesstimates are logical, like market size, all those things. Few are just very random, as random or creative as they could be. Like how many table tennis ball you can fit in an aircraft, right? The reason of asking these is to check your creativity. Okay. To check your creativity and logical thinking in a random abrupt environment which is not standard. Because if it is about market sizing US cars, it looks relatively easy. But what about someone is trying to sell napkins in particular area? You need to be very specific. You need to be very creative to understand what drives the sell of napkins. What are the behaviors? What are the themes? What are the drivers? Which one is more important versus the other? That is why asking these creative, putting you out of your comfort zone is one of the good way in which consulting firm test your logical thinking, the drivers thinking. Okay. Everything in consulting is driven by drivers. What drives that particular decision? And that is why these guesstimates, these logical, illogical, are there designed to test that you understand what are the drivers of anything which is happening around you. Anything which is conventional, anything which is not conventional. And that is why these guesstimates again come into this play of entire picture of your recruitment process and your interview process. I take couple of questions now before I start directly with the first set of questions. Okay. But can't we calculate market size by multiplying the company in the sector with the revenues on the sales? You can think about that with the perspective of yes, but if you think about future, right? When we do market sizing, the very important thing to think about is that you're not talking about just the current trends. These are the drivers, but what these drivers looks in the future. If I were to just add up sales for all the competitors, first of all, finding the data for all the competitors is difficult. Second thing is you might need to adjust the drivers for the future demands in most of the cases because you would be doing market sizing not for the current period, but for the future period. And for that to happen, you still need to tweak or do a sensitivity check on the drivers. And when you do all these things, right, when you say, for example, your age growth would ideally decline, what does it mean to your overall car sales, right? And that is the kind of sensitivity which goes into play while defining this market size for the future. If I were to doing it currently, Nakul, I would directly use maybe the competitor sum, but ideally, in 99% of the cases, you'll be doing it in the future. And that is why having a driver level analysis is always critical and it helps. I hope that has given you some idea. Mitesh, to be honest, I'm not sure what is demand side and supply side guesstimates. Ideally, I'm not sure. I haven't seen this kind of videos, but just to tell you that idea and focus should be trying to identify drivers, sort the drivers, and go filter it, put some numbers behind them logically, and go ahead, and you would be able to solve that guesstimate. It cannot be a random demand side supply side bifurcation. It is not the case. It is a very, very simple thing. It is just one thing which you need to focus on, that is drivers. Think about what drives this decision. Think from a top down approach that you start with the biggest driver, then the small driver, and then you just bifurcate and solve it. We are going to learn it together when we start doing the different example. I'm just taking a couple of questions so that everyone is on the same page of understanding what are guesstimates. So there are like almost all the boutiques firms does it. Like I'm not going to do a name call here, but yes, all the boutique firms always do guesstimates, even if guesstimates are not part of a separate process. But all the big consulting firms, including MBBs, also have guesstimates as part of their overall process. Like for example, they'll ask you that okay, this is a car company which is situated in India. They're planning to do takeover of another company in US. Should they do it or not? The very first thing which you'll do is check the viability of the company they're planning to do a takeover on. And to check the viability, you'll check the market size, the demand. And that is where even they'll say that they don't have the data and will ask you to do some kind of numbering around it. And that is where guesstimate becomes part of a bigger problem. Okay. Still, guesstimates you need to know, because even though if they won't be dedicatedly used, they would become part of your broader case. I hope that has given you some perspective, DB1. How to determine the driving factor should be sampled from a huge pool of metrics. MR underscore 2, very soon you'll realize that when we do different questions, that the drivers are not much for any particular situation, right? If you combine every single driver, there would be about 100, 150 odd drivers, right? But when you start thinking about a particular situation, for example, there could be 100 odd drivers which I can still write more for cars. But at the end of the day, the biggest one is going to be your population, right? Your age, your income. Now, anything else which I put in would be ideally some overlap with everything which I put in. For example, if I have another driver as urban rural will have some kind of overlap with income. So I'm already accounting for it. Now, that is the broad reason to understand that when I prioritize myself, the drivers, I'll just prioritize these three things. Okay. It will help me get to the answer which is about 80% correct. And that is important to realize, that I'm not accounting for all the variables, even though in some sense they drive it. I try to find the top three, top four, top five max. That is what how it works when you go and approach these guesstimates. We are going to do multiple questions today. We are going to learn across by doing different kind of situations, different problems to get to the right number together as a group. But the idea is to understand that first we'll think about the drivers, then we'll prioritize these drivers, then we'll put numbers across these drivers and get the final answer which is required for the question. Okay. I hope that has given you the entire step-by-step process on how to approach a guesstimate. Understand market penetration. Yes, for sure. Is public policy, what kind of guesstimates can be asked? Example, education sector. So it depends. Guesstimates have been very random, and there is no particular trend on these things. But yes, for example, in education sector, there could be a guesstimate asking, can you tell me, like, there is one particular government school which wants to expand their branches into the rural area. Can you tell me, like, how many branches can they open feasibly? And that is one way of defining how exactly is your demand. And then you go ahead and start doing this market sizing or kind of a guesstimate way. This is one way in which how your social impact or your overall policy, public policy consulting could work. But social impact is way, way broader, right? It could also talk about, okay, you want to invest your money in Nigeria, talking about that you want to put in the water pipeline and you want to check, is it feasible to do in Nigeria or is it good to do it in Egypt, right? And one of the way to do it is check the demands in these two. Then you try to compare demand with other constraints and come up with a final answer. Now, all these things, all these type of questions which I'm doing, I'm just making it up. But the idea is to understand that everything which I just said, every example which I gave, would be done with only one thing. We are going to identify the drivers, we are going to prioritize the drivers, we are going to put numbers on these drivers and solve it. That's it. It's a three-way, four-way process. But when you do around 10, 15 guesstimates, you'll realize that's it. That's the only thing which drives these guesstimates. There is no fifth or sixth thing. Okay. I hope that has given you some perspective, Mehboob. Some mathematical formula, but I'm not able to recall the formula. Can I ask the interviewer? Ideally, everything which happens in the guesstimate is normal multiplication or addition, right? Or division. It is not going to be something which is very fancy. Okay. You need to realize that if you ask someone, your interviewer, about the logic which could be driven by multiplication, addition, or division, no, you cannot ask your interviewer. This is the basics which you should understand. If I say if population is divided into the ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 3, I should know what exactly does it mean in terms of the absolute numbers. Okay, so ratios, multiplications, divisions, we should be having command on. We should have understood how exactly does it represent when I say something that the population is divided in the ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 3. What does it mean in terms of absolute number? If I have 100, how would I divide 1 is to 2 is to 3? That is something which you cannot ask interviewer. Okay, it is for sure the baseline I would like to establish. All right, I hope that makes sense, AB_1. What is the difference between a guesstimate and a case study? The difference between guesstimate and case study is guesstimate does not give you so what. Okay. Case study is defined to give you some recommendation. Guesstimates ends on an open loop, while case study closes the loop. For example, your guesstimate could be how many cars are sold in India. Okay, you find the final number. So what, right? But the case could be that there is a company who wants to start selling cars in India, and the very first thing which you as a candidate come up is you want to check market size. Now, the number which you see on your page after calculation would have some implication to the real question asked. And that is the biggest difference between a case study and a guesstimate. It's an open-ended versus one when another closed. I hope that makes sense, Harshita. Uh, Proceed in terms of percentages, yes, you use approximate numbers, but those numbers should be backed by some logic. For example, when someone says there are small themes which I look for, like when I interview people, when I ask these questions, there are small themes which I look for. For example, if I say I asked this question, how many cars are sold in India? If you say that the population is divided into this ratio, and you don't give me your reasoning on why you think it is divided in this particular ratio, I would say, why do you think this happens, right? Let's say, for example, age group, you divide young, medium, and old, and you say everything is 33%. I'll say why it is 33%, right? So ensure that whenever you are assuming some number, you are putting some logic behind it. For example, I'll talk you about the real scenario which happened with me about 8 years back when I was interviewing for a consulting firm which I got into. They asked me a specific question like, how many table tennis ball can you fit in an aeroplane? I could have said like directly, I know the volume of an aeroplane, I know the volume of this particular formula for volume of a table tennis ball. Let's divide that to get number of balls I can fit in. But at the end of the day, I need to give them idea about each of the numbers which I need to know. For example, what should the height I take in the formula of pi r square h, right? What should be the entire thing which I should need to take to consider it cylindrical and then calculate the overall value or volume. So to do that, I need to give some assumptions. I gave them that, okay, so I'm 6 feet. When I walk in the aeroplane, there is about this much space which is left. So I would assume that the height is about 6.5 feet. And that is one kind of a way in which you try to say your assumptions by underlying things which you see around you, and that creates impact. That says that you're logical with your assumptions, you are not giving some random number. One of the biggest pitfall in guesstimates which I have seen so far is candidates trying to give some random numbers across this without backing why. You need to back your numbers. You need to back your numbers. They cannot be some arbitrary number which does not make a logical sense. Even if it makes a logical sense, it should come across why you know it. For example, let's say you say that you want to calculate about the cars. You say, I've seen that in my locality that these many percentage of people lives in a way that they buy luxury, and this much people I say that will buy luxury. Just whatever you see around you, it should come across as you are thinking logically. Okay, you're not giving some arbitrary numbers to just calculate. That is one of the biggest thumb rule I would say it's you need to establish when you start approaching these guesstimates. Okay, I hope that has given you some perspective, right? key drivers in the top-down versus bottom-up approach? Ideally, yes, but when you think about top-down versus bottom-up, one of the best thing in Guesstimates is you always go top-down. You always go top-down. That is the thumb rule. And if you don't go top-down, it would become way too complicated for you to solve. That is why it is always advised that you start with a broad theme. And in many cases, it will be just population. The very first thing is going to be a population. And that is why you start with your broad theme, then you funnel it down into different layers, right? That is how you approach it. So you don't have to think much about it for guesstimates. You always start with one particular theme, then divide it further, then divide it further, then divide it further to get your number. Okay, that is how it works. Also, when considering market size, why don't we directly go ahead with elasticity of demand? Like if you can calculate the elasticity of demand, you can use it, but how do you calculate elasticity of demand? Elasticity of demand is something which is not available on Google. Even if it is, how would you change elasticity of demand for the future? You need to understand the drivers. And again, everything comes to this number. If you are someone from economics background, you would realize that elasticity of demand is dependent on these factors at the end of the day. And everything comes to this, the drivers. Okay, I hope that has given you some perspective. Essay 13. What is the tolerance of the guesstimate answer? 10 to 15%? No, there is no tolerance unless and until you are illogical with me. You would get through if the answer which I have on my paper is even 10%, right? But if you are logical, if you're thinking correct, because the idea could be that there are 2 to 3 more factors which you took into your consideration, which are never part of the solution which I have in my paper. And that is good because you are more near to the accurate. There is no right answer. That is why until you are logical, you are thinking right, your percentages are good, your calculations is correct, you are going to go through. Okay, you don't need the exact right answer. AB1, everything on these guesstimates is already there on your learn.theconsulting.io. So for sure, you can go and practice there. Now, I'm not sure. Josna, I follow you. Can you repeat this question? Meanwhile, Amir, the metrics which you need to know, you would realize like I can give you like 4 or 5 metrics, right? First thing which you need to know for guesstimates is population of top markets. You need to know how in general the gender ratios are in these top 4 or 5 countries. You need to know about the third thing is how on average is the income split across these high, medium, low in these geographies. If it is concentrated too high, if it is less concentrated, just a little idea about that. And then you might need to know the GDP. It gives the idea of which is more richer country versus another, and it helps sometimes. Apart from that, nothing else. Everything you can just make up based on what you see around you. Okay. Okay. Now with this, I have answered all the questions which are there on this particular chat. I now would like to move ahead and start talking about the very important thing. First question, right? So your first question is very similar to what I've just said. What is the market size of luxury cars in India? Or sorry, in USA. Very interesting now. Okay. So let's start with this. Let me try to unmute people. AV3, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, perfect, AV. So let's start with thinking about the question and potentially how would you approach this?
Given that we need to know about the market size for luxury cars in the US, probably I would go with the population of the US first, which is approximately 330 million, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Then I would probably say, let's say in my country and in the US, the top, let's say 5 to 6% of the population are have the disposable income or the willingness to buy a luxury car.
Okay.
Uh, I think these are the only two which are striking my mind right now. But next probably would be
Okay, why this 5%?
generally US has a very I'm just saying it out loud is because the
Mhm.
top the 10% of the population are 90% of the entire GDP. So I'm assuming that half of them would be at least rich enough to buy a luxury vehicle, not just a vehicle which is used for them to get their everyday works done.
Okay. What else drives the buying of luxury cars?
Generally, the need for it.
Okay. What could be the needs for someone buying a luxury car?
For them, probably they have too much disposable income, and that's
Mhm.
the only thing I can think of.
Okay. If you were to divide or categorize this, let's start thinking about your income categories. You said income is the driver, and you said that the top 5% would be the ones. Let's say you are saying that this is your 5%, this is your 95%. Do you think any of these 95% would also be having some willingness to buy cars, these luxury cars?
They might be willing, but yeah, it's a possibility, yes, to look rich or maybe some
Okay.
other factors, yes.
What factors would you think out of these 95%, some people would actually buy cars, luxury cars? This 5%, okay, I get it somehow. This is fine. But tell me about this 95%.
Who want to up their class, like some people might want to have a good social impact or a social uh, life on them, and that might be one of the scenario why they would want it.
Yeah.
Another reason is they have gotten just enough money to probably afford it in the long term, including all their EMIs. That is another possibility.
Yeah. Okay. And how would you find these people out of this pool? Let's say you have total people as 100, 95 are these. How would you bifurcate to with these two particular factor to come at an absolute number?
I would say that probably 2% of them, 2% of them would probably, just have enough. This is because a lot of people whom I see around generally
Hmm.
do, just get promotions or a very hike in salary, or they run a successful business. So just taking that into factors, 2% would probably just enough to probably afford it. It's their newfound money.
Hmm.
And another 1% or 0.5% would like to know about what their social impact is, and probably they would be the one who would be willing to go the distance.
Okay. What the 2% of 95 is?
Yeah, we can take 2% of 95 years.
So what is the number?
2% of 95 is hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. 2% of 95 is uh 19.
0.195 into 2. So this would be
Oh, sorry,
1.9.
1.9, sorry. 1.9, sorry, not 9, like 1.7.
All right. So 1.9. And you're saying this is
Yeah.
0.5% of 95%, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good enough. Anyone else want to add on to what we have from AV3? Just raise your hand and I'll ask you. Okay. SR8, I'll allow you to talk. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Hi, sir. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, you're audible. Yes, tell me.
Sir, according to the last answer only, that is it, as you said, like 2% will be the increment or the addition would be from the 5%, but we already have taken or hypothetical that from 2% means we can do an analysis on that, like how many people are growing from that particular level of income to the higher level of income from the analysis of the last few years data, and we can assume that growth like increase of buying of trends for the luxury cars for the futures. So hope it will help in case of predictions.
Okay. Interesting. What else?
So from that thing only, like in case of market analysis or size of the market, obviously we have to think about some futures. Like we're not going to establish the company for 5 years or 6 years for the 100 years, for like how the people income is increasing, like how their spendings are going towards for the luxury cars, for analysis from their spending analysis from last year data. According to that only we can get to know according to the trend. So it will help us, but it will come as a driver to set a
Sir,
future.
underscore it. I'll just say one specific thing, right? When you're there in the interview, when this question is asked with you, you cannot say that you need more data, right? I agree. In reality, while you're there on a project, you can ask for these patterns, right? What this looks like. But here you have to make some guiding assumptions, okay? And because it is expected from you in those 20 minutes that you'll solve this, you need to make some judgmental assumptions. I agree, your past pattern of behaviors and all those things could drive these things to understand what happens in future. But analyzing past patterns or building past patterns would be very difficult and hard to do in an interview, which you are driving with all the values. That is why whenever you see a guesstimate, avoid using these things, asking for more data. Okay. I hope that everyone would echo the same theme. I understand where you're coming from, because you as a person, or I've seen a lot of people, they love to go ahead, but they need data. They love to crunch numbers, but they need data. But that is where you need to go outside your comfort zone. We cannot ask for any more data. This is all we have. Okay. The question. Now we need to build our thinking ourselves. I understand that you're saying that past patterns are important. Going forward patterns are important. I understand 100% of where you're coming from. But idea is, in an interview, you wouldn't be able to get these things and you will stuck and waste your time, because the time is not going to change. The time would still remain that you need to solve this in 20 odd minutes. All right.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Shubham, I think we can also add how many years luxury cars are generally used in the US, like
Okay.
6 years or 8 years.
Okay.
That is the general life cycle of one luxury car.
Yeah. That was one missing piece. 100%. Okay. Now, apart from this, anyone else have to add anything to this? I'll just ask one more person to add in. MB underscore 1.5. MB 1.5, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Shubha. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you. Tell me, is there anything else to add on to this one, or this covers almost everything?
I'd just like to add one more driver, age group. Okay, because
Okay.
The mid-age group, like between 20 to let's say 45 to 50. So these particular age group will be more prominent to buy these luxury cars rather than 50 plus, and obviously less than 20 age, they will not buy the luxury cars. I think that will help us narrow down the problem.
Yep. 100% agreed, because this reach people could ideally be super on. Okay. All right. This covers everything which I have in my solution bag as well. Okay. I was waiting for this one thing specifically. Now I have this. This covers everything which is important in it. Now, one thing, as Sonsi mentioned, we can go urban and rural as well. But in general, luxury, I don't go urban and rural if I have income already captured here. Because if I'm capturing income, these top people ideally would live in the urban area, and it is fine. But if they are living in the rural area and they are this ultra rich, it is okay for them to buy these luxury cars as well. So that is why I would not include specifically these things. Now, luxury cars are first, there is one last interesting component, which is mentioned by SS underscore 1.5, but that is ultra detailed. And if you put in, that is where you get the extra marks. Okay. But the very first thing you need to understand, when such a question is asked to you, what is luxury cars? What do you mean by luxury cars? Okay. How do you define the value of a luxury car? What is luxury car to you? Do I say Honda City is luxury? Do I say that your Mercedes, BMW, Audi is luxury? Do I say your sports car such as Lamborghini or maybe some very high-end Rolls-Royce are luxury, right? Whenever such question is asked to you, it is very arbitrary, right? But you need to know is you need to understand what exactly is the background of this. So the very first theme which I would advise everyone is to ensure that you're capturing the right thought. Okay. If this was asked to me in an interview, the very first question for me to the interviewer would be, okay, I can make some assumptions, I can think about the drivers, but would like to first understand what do we mean by luxury cars? Are we saying these luxury cars are Mercedes, BMWs, or Audis, which are relatively common in these Western worlds? Or are we talking about Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royce, which are relatively less common, even if we think about the luxury or the ultra luxury classes? And that is why I just want to confirm the very first thing before I establish my bases and the drivers. Okay, that helps. That helps a lot because now you know how to focus on what drives these things. Like BMW, Mercedes is relatively very common in the Western world. It's not the bigger thing, but Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce is still ultra luxury. Okay. Now, whenever you think about the market size, there are always two kind of market size. Always. Okay. One is commercial. Then another one, which we call as residential or normal. I would say normal is like the normal thing, like normal people would buy it, right? Many people, when they go about doing these kind of themes, this is what SS underscore, there was someone, who was it? SS underscore 1.5 slightly hinted it. Okay. Now, when you think about these things, many people will for sure take this path because every time we have done guesstimates, we have done it through population. That is what it is the easiest route to always go ahead and do it for population. But you need to realize that every business is easily these days driven by two components. One, the normal people, the residential demand, and second is the commercial demand. This captures everything. I'm going to summarize it very quickly. Don't worry about the randomness which you see on this page. I'll clear everything and summarize, but try to understand what we have done so far versus the component which we left. We get 90% closer to what the answer should be for the residential market, for the normal people. But for the commercial market, there is still a market which is very prominent. And that market becomes your luxury rental cars, okay? Your hotels, right? Your businesses, right? Even though people are not rich, these people are buying it for the commercial purposes. All you have captured here is the residential demand, okay? But there is a demand which is in this ultra luxury place as well on the commercial side. Now, why it is important? Because in some cases, there might be a theme that someone wants to go into a city where people are not rich, but there are ultra luxury resorts, right? And that is where there is a tourism which is coming in, okay? And there is a commercial demand. If it is a part of a broader case, then you need to realize that commercial also become an important component, okay? And just to summarize everything which I have said so far, okay? How can buy, cash, lease, business, and monthly payment? How? Hardik, I'll talk about the drivers. I consider luxury cars in my calculation as more than $60,000. I think the absolute numbers doesn't matter. Like even $60,000, I wouldn't say is the right ballpark name range for these luxury cars. Okay, and it is always good to confirm with the interviewer. But let me just start fresh on this page. Two things. Okay, we were talking about when you say luxury, the very first thing which you need to do is identify what is luxury. For example, in our specific case, let's say we are talking about not just luxury, but ultra luxury, which falls under the category of your Rolls Royce, your Porsche, your, for example, Lamborghini. Okay. These are the ultra luxury cars which we are talking about as part of this. Now, this we all agreed, we all talked about could be driven by two sides. Okay. One is residential. Second one is commercial. Okay. What drives the residential demands? We all agree that we'll start with population. Okay. We start with population. Then we'll see how they are split across different age groups. So we'll try to identify where exactly the different age groups are. Less than 22, for example, that let's say that's the age where people mostly start engaging with the cars. Or let's make it less than 25, because that could be the point where you divide your luxury cars, because luxury cars are ideally for people above 25, because it gets that much time to become that millionaire in that category to actually buy these cars. Then you have greater than 50, because they'll also have a differential pattern towards these ultra luxury cars. Now you are left with the age groups of 25 to 50. This one would be very highly in terms of their behavior to buy ultra luxury if permits, and these one would be relatively less on buying if given a chance to buy the luxury car if they have the parameters. Then we'll say, okay, now we know these people in this age group. I can have an income bifurcation for these people and some of these people. How many of them are actually falls into this category? Okay, it is fine to say it would be top 0.5% of the population, because 5% of the population is way too much. Okay, think about this. You are talking about 300 million. Okay, 1% of this is ideally 3 million. 5% of this is about 15 million people. That's a big number. Okay, that's a very, very big number. So ideally, when you think about these things, think about the magnitude as well, because this is ideally a big number. In India, when we say about, like, even let's forget India, if you talk about the top 1% in UK, you'll find it's about 150 grand. And 150 grand is like nothing in UK specifically. And people earning 150 grand don't usually go and buy a Rolls Royce the next day. Okay. I guess it might be just because we think about luxury as separately. If you're thinking about Mercedes, yes, someone in 150K ranges could get a Mercedes very easily. But it's not possible to get these ultra luxury cars that commonly. Okay. That is one thing. Using these three factors, you'll come across at least 80 to 90% accuracy. Then you say you'll get, let's say, the overall market for cars using this is about, let's say, 50,000, okay, cars. Now, we know that overall, like in their entire lifetime, okay, people ideally buy these cars. They will buy 50K cars. Now, question is per year, because they want to know the annual market size. So think about the life cycle of these particular cars. Now, whenever you want to convert your overall number to your per year number, you divide it by the life of that particular product. Cars last from about 6 to 7 years in general. And that is where you'll see that is the overall life. But ultra luxury cars, because they are more pristine, people use them less for the day-to-day activities. They'll last for about 10 to 15 years. And that is what you say in your overall communication to get extra points during the interview. And you say that with this would have overall of about 5K luxury cars per year. And then you multiply with some price to get the overall number in terms of dollars. That covers your residential side of things, right? Let me just move this. Okay. Now, this covers your residential type of things. Now, commercial. Can someone tell me, let me just do this thing. Okay, let me just lower all the hands for now. I need just someone to talk about what do you think would drive the commercial demand? How would you create a similar funnel for commercial? Okay, if you have some thoughts to add on, just raise your hand. Okay, just raise your hand and I'll allow you to talk. Yes, Josana, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Sir?
Josh. Yeah, you're audible. Yes, tell me.
Yes, sir. Coming to commercial, I think it could be like it could be segregated into office purposes. Like these days we find that maybe I would like to like separate that in another way also like US population and migrated population migration from other countries. For people who are migrated from other countries for job purposes, so usually offices provide vehicles to them, depending on the role they are actually doing. And like the people who are in higher level, they would provide like luxury cars for their normal day-to-day purposes. In that way, commercially, we can segregate like for office things, and the other thing could be these hotels and all that.
Okay, what else? Apart from office spaces, hotels, who else would buy these on a commercial scale?
On a commercial scale, these could be some Uber, Ola, these sort of online.
But there is a bigger version of like Uber Ola is okay. I'm saying that you're going in the right direction, but not exactly Uber Ola, because Uber Ola not common for ultra luxury. But you're thinking right. This is rentals. Okay, these are ultra luxury rentals. Okay.
Because we could find I found in some YouTube videos that people are booking online and they could find some Tesla like that. They're actually booking like that. So that on
Yeah,
that basis,
Tesla is not ultra luxury. Trust me, Tesla is not ultra luxury. Trust me. Okay, so now with this, okay, think about what will drive the demands of these rental businesses. Okay, I just want to focus on this piece, the rentals. Tell me what drives the demand of rentals and how would you calculate the size of rentals, ultra luxury cars requirement in US?
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Could you please repeat that?
Yes. So let's focus on this ultra luxury segment of rentals. Tell me, how would you size for rentals? It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. I don't want to put you in the spot, but a good take, good suggestions. I'll come back to you, Josna. There are two more hands up. Let me see. Yeah, if I can get additional input from SM_3. SM_3, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Nice,
All
sir.
right. Good.
Sir,
Tell me.
there might be case where some business class people would be going over for some certain kind of meetings. So they will be needing luxurious cars for them.
Okay.
Or there might also be certain people who would love to have the luxurious car but cannot afford them to actually buy them.
Okay.
I can think of these two reasons only right now.
But what do you think would drive the demand? These could be the parameters, right?
Yes, sir.
But these could be a special situation. But what is the driver, right? What do you think is the driver? Do you think location of the city is the driver?
Location of the city, but Yeah, it can be like if it is posh city, there we can find more of luxury vehicle.
And do you find more of rentals?
If it is a posh area, people will I think people will go towards buying the cars instead of taking it for rentals, because
Okay.
posh area mostly there will be rich people around there.
Okay. So where do you think would be more rentals? You're thinking right. I'm
Uh,
not saying that you're thinking wrong. You're thinking right. Where do you
if
think it will be more rentals?
like somewhere in between, if we take like not, we can say kind of middle class people location, where people would love to go more into the luxury car but cannot afford it. Plus at the locations where there are more office business, when I talked about the business class people, so places where business are situated more.
Okay. Another thing, do you think tourism, the cities which would be highly influenced by tourism, would have a good rental car market?
Sir, it would have a good rental car market, but we cannot specifically say that luxurious car rental market can also be there, because
Okay.
we will need to assess whether what kind of tourists visit those places.
Okay. What attracts luxury tourists?
Uh, like certain things which we cannot find there, like specifically which we can go there, like beaches. There are beaches, and
Okay.
like beautiful locations, scenic beauties,
Beaches,
as
scenic
it
beauty
is.
is one.
Yeah,
What else?
wonders. And we can also say like foreign tourists are coming to India for specially like I have read somewhere like for wedding tourism. They are attracted towards our
Think
culture.
US. Think US. Think US.
So
Why people would, like in US, where people would go for ultra luxury people would go? Why?
like Manhattan or these locations, there
They live there.
was
Where they would go as a tourist? Beaches, I agree. This is Miami. Okay. What
yeah.
else? What else? There is one important thing which you're missing when you think about when they go. Where exactly do they go for these luxury things?
The casinos and all.
Yes, casinos. They love to gamble.
Yeah.
Where exactly these comes in?
Um,
You all watch series.
Los Angeles.
Yes, this is LA Vegas, right?
Yeah, LA Vegas.
This is the biggest rental market in US for luxury cars. Spot on. Okay. This covers 90% of the luxury market, cars luxury rental market in the US. And this is how you proceed now. Okay. And this would be a typical interview for 15-20 minutes I'll do with the candidate. And how you did is I would say, if I were to rank between 0 and 10, okay, your name is changed, right? Yes. Okay, I can talk about it without any fear. So SM_3, right? So now your if I were to rate between 0 and 10, you fall in a very good spot of 6 to 7. Okay. For me, someone who is in the range of 6 to 7 is like needs quick brushing, but smart, understands. If pushed through, can get through. Okay. So that is why you would go to the next stage for sure. But again, now you need to listen yourself when you move ahead of these things. Think about the drivers yourself. You yourself were able to understand when I came to tourist. You rejected location. That is very good, because location is not the only factor. You talked about it. Yes, it matters. In New York, you relatively would have a higher number of rentals than compared to, for example, your what is the outskirts, that random city? Let's say Buffalo, right? Compared to, sorry, I have no offense, but yes, compared to Buffalo, you'll have relatively more rentals in New York, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to set up a business where people can actually afford it. Now,
Yes.
this would be relatively much higher because in these tourist area compared here, The reason being, here people can actually buy them, and you are absolutely spot on. That is why when you think about these luxury cars, the biggest market, one of the biggest place for this is Dubai. And the reason is not because the people there are ultra rich. Yes, that is one of it, but that is not the rentals market. That's the residential market. Rental market is ideally because of tourism. Okay. And you are 100% right to think about this. Okay. And
Thank
that is what is important to realize when you go across and identify these parameters. And the exercise which we have done today, trust me, I never intended to go into that much detail, but it is because you all are thinking so correctly, so smartly, that you are able to understand all these details, all these small parameters. I'd like to take a pause. And first of all, thank you, SM3. I'd like to take a quick pause, remove all the hands, okay? Answer any questions to whatever I have said so far. I'd like to take these sessions as slow as possible, do less problems as possible, but go into the depth which covers everything which you need to know for this. There is no coming back from this. Anything which you see around you in the market size, now you know two things. I need to think about commercial and residential. I need to think about commercial, what drives commercial. Okay, few things which drives commercial in most of the situation would be your location, would again be your overall tourism's coming to this or not. Apart from that, feasibility is one of the very, very good factors. For example, if this becomes solar, or if this question becomes something which relates with rainwater harvesting, for example, you cannot have this in New York, like New York you can might be, but you cannot have it across the world, right? You can have it only in the place where the sun rays is good enough that you can have solar panel installed. And that is the feasibility check, which ideally goes at top of everything which I have said. And that is the last parameter of guesstimates. Here, feasibility was not a part of it because it's cars. Okay. So feasibility is another component which makes your guesstimates. Okay. Any questions, anyone? All right. I think how to determine income percentage between age group distribution. DB 1.5, one ideal way to think about this is that you try to learn about top 5 to 6 geographies, how the overall split of population across different income level is. High, medium, low is one thing. High, medium, low, and ultra high is super high is something which you can further divide based on it. Okay. So now feasibility, I'll explain DB underscore 0.1, right? For example, you'll say that I'll ask you to calculate the market size for solar panels, for examples, right? You'll say these are all the residential houses in USA. These are the foot area of the top floor. And this is one solar panel. You divide them, you get number of solar panels. But if you look into this US, I don't even know if this is US, but yeah, the idea is that this part of this is solar, like there is sun, then you have this big deserted area where you have more sun, and here are the area where you don't have sun, which goes towards or this part of it, which goes towards Canada. And now when you think about this, even though you calculated the entire US, this is the only part of the US which is feasible. That is the feasible check, because solar panels cannot be placed everywhere. Okay. Same thing goes for example, if you want to talk about your rainwater harvesting system, there needs to be a particular level for it to actually exist. You should have a particular level of rainfall throughout the year. And that is why feasibility becomes important. I hope you're able to understand DB underscore 01 to get a sense of it. All right. When should we consider feasibility? If you think that whatever your drivers are here needs another layer, like on top of this layer. Population is not the topmost driver, right? The biggest driver is if even solar panel could be installed or not. If it would be depending upon your different geographical areas. if it cannot be applied to certain areas, that is where you start thinking about feasibility. For example, you have a hydroelectric plant. It cannot be situated every single where, right? That is why feasibility is for all those big things, which are dependent upon different factors for them to first exist in the very basic sense. Okay. Can government institute be considered for luxury car market? This is the final level, Mitesh, right? When you think about this, we can consider this, but this would be relatively very small market. Okay. Because ultra luxury, such as Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, is in numbers, like you can count them. There won't be more than 200 in the entire US. Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini, and Porsche. That is where, if the numbers could be counted like this, you ideally don't include it part of your primary analysis. But yes, as a subcategory, you can do it, but you'll see that it's a very small number. And for this analysis, we can potentially ignore this. But that is one of the component as well. I hope that has given you some perspective, Mitesh. Truck, commercial vehicle, nope. That is what, Rahul, the very first thing you do is define what is ultra luxury. What we define ultra luxury is Rolls Royce, we defined as Porsche, we defined as Lamborghini. If you think about Mercedes trucks and those, no, these are not ultra luxury cars. These are your commercial vehicles. Okay. Divide into three: developed, underdeveloped, and poor economic ratio. Yes, that is one way to think about this. But ideally, I'll say instead read something about top 5 geographies and how the income split looks like. It gives you a relatively more idea about the industry as a whole. Explain the role of life of cars. Okay, so the numbers which you get is in overall lifetime. This is the demand, the 50K. The role of life of a car is that you want to know what is the per year sale. The per year sale is dependent how long one car purchase is going to last. For example, someone in 25 to 50 years is not going to buy a car every single year. They're going to buy the car after the life cycle is ended. And the life cycle ends in about 10 to 15 years. And that is where you ideally want to just consider that thing when you come to the annual number. I hope that has given you some perspective, DV 1.5. About drivers irrespective of the context of the case in order to understand about it much better. Week_14. This is the only way to understand about it. Okay. If you start thinking about the drivers, which is not respectively tied to this particular case, you cannot specifically broaden or shorten the context, right? Ideally, if I don't think about the context and give you some theoretical gyan, you can ideally take it, but it wouldn't solve the purpose. Few theoretical gyan which I can still give you if you want to know is drivers are the ones which actually drives the outcome. For example, the market size, right? Market of anything, luxury, whatever you talk about luxury, ideally would be driven by income. Whenever you talk about something which is driven more about by user perception, for example, the adoption of solar and everything, it would be a mix of feasibility and what user wants and perceives as their need to switch. But again, at the end of the day, you need to realize how to build up your thinking. Consulting cannot be a cheat sheet, right? This thing cannot be a cheat sheet. Guesstimates cannot be a cheat sheet. There was one question where I got a very interesting response last time where I left one of the discussion over my emails. Someone tried to give me a very, very good answer. I'm still to reply to that email. Was how many golf balls are in air right now? Okay. And as I said, this was the question which I was asked during my first screening round at Bain. And I got through it for sure. But this is everything. And I've said, right, if you try to achieve and try to solve it through questions and start thinking about the drivers with the lens of a question, you can do many things, right? And that is why, and going to the depth is important. Golf, just if you want to practice more, there are 3 questions which are there on this. Send me the response on email. Okay. Send me the response to those questions over email, and I'll be more than happy to give you some idea. One thing I want to add on is that I'm still to reply to all the emails. This week has been as crazy as it could be. I missed 3 one-on-ones. I'll schedule them this week. This is my responsibility. If I miss any one-on-one, I'll schedule them myself, and I'll ensure you get a slot within next 2 to 3 days. So I missed 2 to 3 because I when it gets this weather change, I get this sinus a headache, and in the early morning it gets sometimes very random to actually make up. So that is why I missed a few things. I'll reply to the pending emails today or max tomorrow and set up the remaining sessions. But yes, as I said, there are a couple of questions which you can practice, but the only way to proceed further with these guesstimates is to practice. Think about the complexities. Don't assume that what is written on your, like if you go and Google for give me 10 guesstimate questions, even for a very simple question like we did, what is the market size of luxury cars in USA? There would be only very few pages which will talk about commercial component. Everyone will talk about residential because it is easy. No one wants to think about the other side. But the people who are going to get through the next stages of the interview are going to be the one who think about these complexities. And that will come only with the practice. That is why I emphasize a lot on practice. And I'm here to guide you. If you want to practice the problem which I gave you, there are 3 problems which are open. One is how many golf balls are in the air right now. Right now, golf balls, air. These are the 3 key words to look for when you define your answer. Okay. I would say just first send me the drivers. Okay. Don't send me the exact numbers around them. Just send me the drivers. We'll discuss. Okay. There was one very interesting response which I got. I cannot tell you how happy I am for that response, but yes, I'm going to still reply you. But yes. Now, next one is, what is the market size of solar panel commercial in India? Okay, that is one question. Then there is one more question, which is still open to your responses, is yes, online shopping market. Online shopping market in Dubai. Okay, these 3 questions. These 3 questions are still open. Okay, you just go back, reflect to whatever we have learned so far. Okay, reflect upon whatever I've said in this discussion today. Send me the responses to this. Practice is going to be the very first thing which is going to drive end to end. Okay, I hope that has given you some perspective, some idea on where to begin on, where to start thinking about this, how to think about drivers. I think I've given you one example for this. The discussion is going to be continued again and again when we start looking into the cases and different themes. But the idea is to start thinking about the mindset with the rigor of finding out the right drivers, finding out the broad themes which drives with the particular question. More practice, more depth of the analysis is going to elevate your thinking. I'm pretty sure if someone is going to ask you about anything which is dependent or very similar to cars, like cars, buses, your motorcycles or your cycles, you would think about these things, right? When you think about these things, you already have solved for these many cases. Now think something different. Like whenever you think about these examples which I've given you, the pending ones are to be approached very differently than the one which we discussed today. That is why these are the pending ones. Okay, so approach them. When you solve these 4 questions, trust me, you have solved at least 50 to 60 different questions which are there on different online websites. Okay, and that is why I say the breadth is not important in trying to solve more problems. The depth of one is important. Okay, and I hope I have given you some perspective on how to broadly think about these guesstimates today. Okay, should we mention all the drivers and select one? No, ideally what you do is whenever a question is posed to you, you ask for 2 minutes. Can I take 2 minutes to structure my thoughts? And when you say 2 minutes, that is where you write all the drivers in your pen and paper. You yourself prioritize few, and then you move ahead and say, okay, I believe these are the top drivers. There are other drivers, but I believe they are relatively small contributor in the overall theme of the question. I will ignore them and potentially focus on these 3. Do let me know if that sounds reasonable. If yes, I'll go about and talk on the approach on how will I do the calculations. If that looks fine, I'll go ahead and put these numbers and give you the final number. Okay, this is how you will proceed and incorporate that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. You can just go 3. The US is okay. What if there are geographies? If the question about how about answering R_BD, right? When you think about geographies, what else geography it could be? Let me say, when I say top 5 or 6, what do I mean by that? Okay. What is this top 4, 5, 6? There are not many geographies which this world is concerned about at this stage. Okay. To be frank, to be blunt, these are only few. Okay. It is going to be US, it's going to be UK, it's going to be EU as a whole, then it's going to be China, then it's going to be India, and then it's going to be what else? Which is interesting is Japan, and then what else apart from this? Yes, UAE. These are the only pockets which you need to know little bit about. And most of you who have already subscribed to the newsletters, which I have already talked about earlier, would know that the recent news captures everything which is happening in these geographies. To understand what drive this, few features of geographies. Japan is old. UAE is oil and tourism. India, growing. China, manufacturing, cheap labor. EU, struggling with oil, struggling with crisis on financial sides, no labor to actually work. UK, similar side, recently went through a Brexit. They import almost everything. US, you all are very aware. Okay. UK, you'll see a lot more tourism. UAE, tourism. Again, what I'm saying is, these are all these 7 geographies. If you know what drives these economies, what are the themes of this economy, that's all for most of the thing you need to know at the geographical level, RBD. I hope that makes sense. Office, consulting, but normal office, as in KPMs, would be using them as ideally, yes. Can we go about the number of company in US, get a successful company, and then go about top employees and going about? So think about this. What you're saying is that you'll go about looking for on a side of top employees, right? At the end of the day, yes, that is one of the way you can do it. But putting numbers across them would be very difficult, right? First of all, how would you identify the number of companies which are there in US? Okay. Secondly, how many of those are successful? It is relatively easy from past experience to put numbers when you have bifurcation from population as a top metric, because it's relatively easy. You know what is the numbers. These numbers resonate well with other people as well. But the very first starting point, even identifying the number of companies, is difficult. You're thinking right, but you want to do the calculations as well. So you want to set something which you can actually give numbers against. That is why, though this will lead to final answer, putting numbers and assumptions in between would be very difficult. I hope that makes sense, PG_0. How marriage celebrities, photo shoot, functions, commercial rental drivers, everything is again counted as what is the most important ones, right? These are going to be there, but no one opens a rental car business in a location which it is just one of a kind. The most weddings, most ultra luxury weddings happens in these areas as well. That is where the rental business is more. Moreover, when you think about these things, ultra luxury cars in nearby neighborhood are being then sent to a locality if it is far from the ones. Now, our question is, we're not aiming for 100% accuracy. We are aiming for capturing the biggest chunk of it. The biggest chunk of it is not the one which you just mentioned. I hope that has given you some perspective, Rahul. Can we consider emotions of desire as one of the drivers in luxury? Yes, but how would you put a number against it? I can say you can say that people who desires or have emotions by these luxury cars, but what percentage of this population, what drives this emotion is more important. For example, there is another economy, parallel economy, which is established, the creator economy. Those economies might be the one because they can earn from this and that influence and everything. But now, again, what drives the emotions and this is not specifically putting a number across these people like these emotions, but it will be easy to put number across this influencer economy and then saying about this would drive these emotions. Emotions for sure will lead to purchase of these luxury vehicles, but what drives these emotions is more important. I hope it resonates about, because we want to put numbers across them. Okay. Golf balls that are being transported. No, we are not talking about anything which is being transported. Okay, we are talking about playing golf in the air. Okay. Everything in the online shopping, I would say this is online. Yes, a very good question. Online shopping is a clothing market. Okay. Normal to luxury, all the clothing. Okay. Full clothing market. Second question is solar panel commercial market in India. Email ID is my email ID. Everyone on this call should know my email ID. This is my email ID. I'm not a very good writer. My writing is not good. And okay. mnm.shubham93@gmail.com. This is being shared in the first session of your orientation and all the subsequent meetings post that as well. This is my email address. Would you please provide the, yes, I'll give you the name of the newsletters. Okay. Just let me write this. Axios is the name of the newsletter. McKinsey on Point is another newsletter. They recently have McKinsey on Point recent newsletter was very interesting. They talked a lot about this creator economy, and it was very, very interesting on what it is changing for the world. So all these things, like, keep you on toes what's happening, right? And these two are the ones which I'll suggest. These are good. I read them a lot. I spend all my time which I travel reading them. So I would say they are good. But yes, apart from that, let me see if there are any questions. I got interview was to estimate yearly revenue of Etihad Stadium in Manchester. Many individuals who see football or visit stadium are aware of the price. In such question, estimate of the number. Okay, Mohit, you don't know about the football price, right? But let's say you know what's the price of a ticket for a cricket match. Then you multiply it by a factor, say that, okay, football is relatively more popular in this world, it would be more expensive. Second thing, it's a Western world, there is a markup for that. Now you say it's a 120 rupees or 300, 400 rupees ticket. Let's say in INR, the ticket would become about 10,000, 15,000. Then you convert it to a currency difference. Then say, okay, about 150 pounds is the price for a ticket in a football match. That is where Etihad Stadium is. But as an interviewer, what we are looking for is not exactly on how you come with the final number of the price, if it is right or not. But we are thinking about if you are able to understand what drives these revenue, right? What drives is not just the price of the tickets, but also the brand endorsement, plus the food which is being purchased, plus all the parkings and all the extra amenities which are being shared in the stadiums. And yeah, and then all the merchandise and everything. Okay, so these are the 4 to 5 things. That is where you start thinking about what we are looking for. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Should we consider McKinsey in Guesstimates? Ideally, yes, Mitesh. That is what we did when we removed urban-rural, because it is having an overlap with the income. Okay, and we wanted to have the exclusive drivers. I hope that has given you some perspective. It is inherently there. Like McKinsey is a concept which has been established by consulting for good reasons. But for me, it is moot. The reason being why it is moot is because we already capture when we start thinking logically. And that is why when we were thinking urban rural, we said that income already captures it. Okay. And that is where it was McKinsey. But again, people try to call it in consulting, do McKinsey, do McKinsey, do McKinsey. Even the people don't know what is McKinsey. So I would personally, I don't stress much about it. If I am logical, I'm already McKinsey. So that is what I will say for anyone who is thinking about this. Commercial for solar panel, do you imply that government driven solar panels which are not on residential buildings? Commercial are the one which are not on the residential buildings. That's it. Including the one which are posted by government across different areas. Yes, that should be included. Rahul, if you do these 3 questions and send a response on email in detail, that is all you need to know about Guesstimates. Trust me. Again, from, I think I mentioned Axios, AXIOS. No, it's a website. It's a website, and you just need to put in your email address and you can subscribe to it. All right. I hope that makes sense. And with this, who is the correct person regarding for any discussion on the portal? Technically details, if you're not able to get anyone from Jobaaj, just email me. I'll add on someone from the technical team. So just email me. At the end of the day, I'm the person. So yeah, you can just do it. Where to subscribe the newsletter? Go to their website. It's relatively very simple. It's not, I have no connection with them. I promote them like anything, but I should get something, but I don't get anything from them apparently. What is the? I think I've already said limitation. What about knowledge limitation? How to work for it? Knowledge limitation is something which takes time. It is nowhere possible that today you know something, but you wouldn't know in future, right? It is about a knowledge base is continuously developed by learning, reading. That is what I say. It takes time. It's not the case that next day you'll know everything by reading 10 different articles. No. What you need to do is regularly, like the newsletter which I've said, regularly just spend 10-15 minutes. That's it. It will help you to elevate your thinking 100 times, trust me. But it needs to be regular, but it needs to be in a consistent manner. Then after 1 month, trust me, you'll have idea about everything which I just said. And whenever you read something, whenever you feel something is interesting, Google it. For example, the economy, like the creators economy, the latest newsletter which I got, I read a lot about it. I did my own due diligence after this because it was so freaking interesting. Then why someone would become an investment banker or a private equity person if someone in creator economy is earning almost similar? What does it mean for the top venture capitalists? Because social is important to them. And all those things just blew my mind on what the future of this could be. And that is where you actually read, you type on Google and learn. One thing which I advise is ChatGPT is shortcut to the answers. But don't use ChatGPT if you want to research. It is not a good research tool. It is a good answer tool. It is summarized. You don't want summarized answers. You want to read into the details. That is why when you're doing a research, when you're learning, it should not be on ChatGPT. That is my thought process, because it is so summarized, it loses the essence. It summarizes, it becomes repetitive if you ask questions. That is why I would say use Google. Go to the website, read them. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Axios covers globally. You'll see the trends across different key geographies. It wouldn't be separate for every country, but it will have themes of what's happening across the world. And in world, that is where this everything comes in. ChatGPT is not used in consulting. Rahul, not at all. About the golf ball guesstimates, I'll give you the question. I won't give you the answer right now. The question is, how many golf balls are there in the air right now? Okay, that is the question. And now, with this being said, I have answered every single question which was there on the chat. And I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you learned about guesstimates. This is not the only time we are going to talk about guesstimates. Guesstimates is a regular process. It will be embedded in you, but as I said, keep on practicing. These 3 questions which I've said are the one which you start as a starting point to learn about these things. Moving forward, we'll do more practice. I'll share across personalized feedback when you email me about the solution of this. And thanks a lot for your time today. I know it's been getting sunny in UK as well. And we have been trying to do and keep pace with the changing weather, but I sometimes get sick and it becomes difficult to respond everything on time. I'm trying my best. You'll see most of the response to the open questions coming this weekend. I understand that I'm prioritizing few individuals who already have the interview scheduled. So if you have interview scheduled, don't wait for anything, just email me, okay? I'll most probably won't give you a dedicated slot, but I'll call you. I'm trying my best to give you the best possible thing with the kind of schedule and the changing weather which I currently struggle with. But apart from that, I hope you are able to get through what I just said. Now, Jyotsna, I think you're talking about the case study for pharma case. Can you hear me, Jyotsna? Hello.
Yes, yes, sir.
You're talking about the pharma case, right?
Yes, sir. Actually, I've gone through the case and there you're asked us to provide responses, right? Is that something that needs to be written in a worksheet or something that like this
Yeah,
is very first
Jyotsna,
encounter to
just write down your response in the Word document and submit the same thing. Quick thing for everyone who is attempting that first case. It is not expected from you to get it right. it is expected from you to think. Just write your logical thinking if you're not able to come up with the answer. Think about what you're thinking while looking into the numbers. I don't need anything, but I need you to put in efforts to actually think it through. That could be your response. I don't need the exact answers. Second, once you have been through, once you have given your head, ask for the passwords. Okay. There is a solution which is already there, but it would need a password for it. Ask password from me. I'll share across you the password. Okay. And that is the second thing which will help you to get to the right answer. But the idea of this base case is that when you see there are more case questions in the future weeks and phases, that when you do this, we'll start comparing in which direction have we moved compared to our case 1 versus case 3. That is where it will help establish our line on which area to focus on. That is why we have the week 1 case. I hope it makes sense that I don't want you to get it right. I want you to just put in efforts, share your thinking, so that once we go again ahead, we know how much we have moved from the initial phase. All right.
Okay.
Perfect. I know I speak a lot, but I hope I've given you the answer. Okay, perfect. All right, with this, thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. It's time for me to have a good breakfast. I'll talk to you soon, and thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the weekend. For people who have the one-on-one schedules, I'll talk to you soon today and tomorrow. We have a lot of one-on-ones. So I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.